My precious child, if you are hearing these words at this very moment, do not dismiss them as another ordinary message. There is a reason your attention was drawn here, a reason your heart refused to scroll away. Something has been unfolding behind the curtain of your life that you were never meant to see until now. 45 minutes left. Archangel Michael says the delay you've been frustrated by was actually divine timing. Those words are not here to increase your fear. They are here to awaken your faith. What looked like silence was not heaven ignoring you. What felt like rejection was not your destiny slipping away. It was protection wrapped in a form your human eyes could not recognize. For days, months, or perhaps even years, you have asked the same question. Why is nothing changing? You prayed with tears. You waited with hope. And hope became exhaustion. You watched doors remain closed while others seemed to walk effortlessly into blessings you had begged for. You wondered if God had forgotten your name. You questioned whether your prayers were reaching heaven at all. Yet this is the revelation that changes everything. The delay was never evidence that heaven was absent. The delay was evidence that heaven was working where you could not see. Archangel Michael speaks to every soul carrying the weight of disappointment today. There were moments when you stood only one step away from making a decision that would have taken you far from your purpose. There were conversations you never had because someone canceled at the last moment. There were opportunities that disappeared without explanation. There were plans that collapsed just when they seemed certain to succeed. You called them setbacks. Heaven called them rescues. The enemy wanted you to believe that waiting meant losing. But divine timing does not follow the clock of human frustration. While you counted delays, heaven counted preparation. While you focused on what had not arrived, unseen battles were being fought on your behalf. Every unanswered prayer carried an answer that had not yet reached the visible world. Every closed door hid another door that required perfect timing before it could safely open. Now listen carefully, because this moment carries unusual significance. The phrase 45 minutes left is not about creating panic. It is about awakening expectation. Throughout Scripture, God often moved when people believed they had reached the end of their strength. Just when everything appeared impossible, the breakthrough arrived suddenly, changing the story forever. What seemed late was revealed to be perfectly timed. Perhaps you have been tempted to give up recently. Perhaps you almost stopped praying. Perhaps you nearly convinced yourself that nothing would ever change. If so, this message has arrived before that decision could take root. Archangel Michael reminds you that your waiting season has never been empty. Every moment has been shaping you for something greater than you imagine. The pieces you believed were falling apart have quietly been falling into place. So do not mistake stillness for abandonment. Do not confuse delay with denial. There is movement where your eyes cannot yet see. There is preparation where your heart has only sensed silence. And before this message is finished, you may begin to recognize that the greatest miracle was never delayed at all. It was being guarded until the exact moment you were ready to receive it. Beloved soul, there is something your heart must understand before you judge the seasons you have walked through. Human eyes measure progress by what they can touch, count, and celebrate. Heaven measures progress by what is being transformed within you long before anyone else notices it. That is why the greatest works of God often begin in complete silence. The roots of the strongest tree grow deep beneath the ground before a single branch reaches toward the sky. In the same way, while you believed your life had been standing still, unseen foundations were being strengthened so that the blessings ahead would not crush you under their weight. Archangel Michael reminds you that every delay carries a hidden purpose, even when that purpose is impossible to recognize in the moment. Think about the times you pleaded for immediate answers. You believed that receiving exactly what you wanted, exactly when you wanted it, would finally bring peace. Yet if those prayers had been answered without preparation, would your heart have been ready? Would your character have been strong enough to carry the responsibility? Heaven does not simply deliver blessings. Heaven prepares the person who will receive them. That preparation often feels like waiting, but waiting and wasting are not the same thing. There is an invisible battle that takes place whenever God prepares someone for a greater assignment. It is not always dramatic. It is not always loud. Much of it happens quietly, beyond the reach of human understanding. While you were wondering why certain relationships faded away, heaven was removing voices that would have weakened your courage. While you mourned opportunities that disappeared, unseen hands were redirecting your path away from places that could have stolen your peace. What appeared to be loss was often divine redirection. You may remember nights when your prayers felt as though they were bouncing back from the ceiling. You opened your heart completely, expecting immediate comfort. Yet all you heard was silence. Silence can be frightening because it leaves room for doubt to whisper. Doubt says that nothing is happening. Fear says that you have been forgotten. Discouragement says it is time to stop believing. But the voice of heaven speaks differently. Heaven says that silence is often the workshop where miracles are being carefully assembled. Just because you cannot hear the hammer does not mean the builder has stopped working. Archangel Michael stands as a reminder that protection does not always look like victory in the beginning. Sometimes protection wears the disguise of inconvenience. It appears as canceled plans, delayed answers, unexpected detours, or doors that refuse to open despite your greatest efforts. Looking back, many people discover that the event they once called their greatest disappointment actually became the turning point that saved them from unimaginable regret. What if your story is unfolding the very same way? What if the chapter you wanted to skip is the one that will eventually reveal God's wisdom most clearly? The enemy often uses impatience as one of his strongest weapons. He knows that exhausted hearts are tempted to settle for temporary comfort instead of eternal purpose. He whispers that anything is better than waiting. He encourages rushed decisions, unhealthy compromises, and shortcuts that promise immediate relief but carry hidden consequences. Yet divine timing refuses to be manipulated by panic. God is never pressured by deadlines created by human fear. His timing remains perfect even when your calendar tells you that hope is running out. Perhaps you have asked yourself why others seem to receive their breakthroughs while you continue standing in the same place. Comparison is one of the greatest thieves of peace because it convinces you that another person's timeline should become your own. But heaven writes every story differently. One person may experience rapid change because their assignment requires it. Another may walk through a longer season of preparation because what hath been entrusted to them demands deeper roots. Delay is not evidence of lesser favor. Sometimes it is evidence of greater preparation. Remember that many of God's greatest servants experienced seasons where nothing seemed to happen. They endured long periods of uncertainty before stepping into the purpose that changed countless lives. Those waiting seasons were not empty pages in their story. They were chapters filled with unseen lessons, hidden strength, and growing faith. The same truth can be unfolding in your own life right now. Every tear has taught compassion. Every disappointment has built endurance. Every unanswered question has stretched your trust beyond what comfort could ever produce. Archangel Michael invites you to look beyond the surface of your circumstances. Instead of asking, "Why is this taking so long?" begin asking, "What is heaven preparing inside me during this time?" That single question has the power to transform frustration into expectation. It shifts your focus away from what has been delayed and toward the one who controls every season. You may not understand every reason today, but one day you will look back and realize that every pause, every closed door, every unexpected turn, and every difficult moment fit together like pieces of a masterpiece that only heaven could design. To hold firmly to hope. The battle behind your delay has not been meaningless. It has been purposeful, precise, and guided by hands far wiser than your own. Even now, events are moving in ways you cannot yet perceive. Pieces are aligning. Hearts are changing. Paths are clearing. What seems motionless from where you stand is already advancing under God's perfect direction. The silence is not empty. The waiting is not forgotten. The story is still unfolding, and the author has never stepped away from the page. Faithful one, there is a question that has quietly echoed through your heart for a long time. Has heaven forgotten me? It is a question many never speak aloud because they fear it sounds like doubt. Yet Archangel Michael reminds you that God is not offended by honest questions. He sees every tear that was hidden from others. He remembers every prayer whispered when no one else was listening. Not one cry has disappeared into silence. Every word had been gathered, every hope had been preserved, and every promise remains alive in the hands of the one who never fails. One of the greatest signs that you have never been forgotten is not always found in dramatic miracles. Sometimes it is found in the simple fact that you are still standing after everything you have faced. There were moments when your strength should have failed completely. There were nights when fear tried to convince you that tomorrow would only bring more disappointment. Yet somehow you kept moving. Somehow you found another prayer. Somehow you discovered enough courage to take one more step. That strength did not come from your own ability alone. Heaven was sustaining you even when you could not recognize its presence. Think back over the last several seasons of your life. There were situations that made no sense when they happened. A relationship ended unexpectedly. A promotion slipped away. A move was delayed. A carefully planned opportunity disappeared without warning. At the time, each event looked like another painful setback. But now, if you look carefully, you may already notice that some of those disappointments protected you from roads that would have led to greater sorrow. The pain was real, but so was the protection. The delay was difficult, but it carried wisdom that only time could reveal. Archangel Michael wants you to notice another sign that heaven has been working behind the scenes. Your desires have been changing. The things you once chased with all your energy no longer hold the same power over your heart. Dreams have matured. Priorities have shifted. You have become more patient in places where you were once impulsive. You have learned compassion through suffering, humility through waiting, and endurance through unanswered questions. These changes are not accidents. They are evidence that while you were waiting for God to change your circumstances, God was also transforming you into someone prepared to carry greater blessings with greater wisdom. Many people believe that breakthrough begins the moment they receive the answer they have been praying for. But often the breakthrough begins much earlier, in the quiet decision to trust God before the answer arrives. Every day you choose faith instead of despair, heaven celebrates a victory that cannot yet be measured by human eyes. Every moment you refuse to surrender to hopelessness, another stone is added to the foundation of the future God is preparing for you. The enemy would rather have you focus only on what has not happened yet. He wants you to ignore the countless ways God has already carried you. He whispers that because one prayer remains unanswered, every blessing hath been withheld. But that is a lie designed to blind you to the evidence surrounding your life. You are breathing today because grace has sustained you. You are listening to this message because purpose still calls your name. You have survived battles that once seemed impossible because divine mercy has walked beside you through every valley. Perhaps the greatest sign that you have not been forgotten is this very moment. Out of countless voices and endless distractions, these words have reached your heart. Let them remind you that heaven still speaks, heaven still guides, and heaven still prepares a way where none appears to exist. The delay has never been proof that your story is over. It hath been the sacred space where God's timing hath been aligning people, opportunities, protection, and purpose in ways too complex for human understanding. So lift your eyes with renewed expectation. Refuse to define your future by yesterday's disappointments. The one who began a good work in you has not abandoned it. What feels hidden today will one day become a testimony that strengthens countless others. The season of waiting has not erased your calling. It has refined it. The silence has not emptied heaven. It has simply concealed the sound of preparation until the appointed moment arrives. Type "I receive divine timing" in the comments if this message is speaking to your spirit. Blessing code 3148 has just been released as a reminder that God's perfect timing never arrives too early and never comes too late. As this truth settles into your heart, let it also become a seed that reaches someone else who is still waiting in silence. Every message shared through this ministry is another light shining into a life that may be hanging on by a thread of hope. The Lord declares that when you sow generously, you also participate in a greater harvest prepared by His hands. If your heart is saying, "I want to help this message reach another soul," respond to that invitation with faith. You can send a super thanks or give directly through the PayPal donation link provided in every video description and through the QR code shared with each video. Let your gift become a prophetic seed that carries encouragement where despair has tried to rule. I speak blessing over every cheerful giver, asking that God multiply peace, provision, and favor over your household. Do not delay the prompting placed in your spirit. Sow today, and become part of the light heaven is sending into the world. Beloved child, there are moments in every life when the greatest blessing is not what God allows to happen, but what He lovingly refuses to let happen. Human hearts often celebrate open doors and mourn closed ones, yet heaven sees what exists on both sides of every decision. Archangel Michael reminds you today that some of the prayers you thought were unanswered were actually answered through protection. You asked for one path, but God saw where that path would have ended. You grieved what was taken away, but heaven rejoiced because something far more valuable had just been preserved. There were people you desperately wanted to remain in your life. You invested your trust, your kindness, and your hopes into relationships that seemed full of promise. Then, without warning, everything changed. Words were left unsaid. Calls stopped coming. Plans dissolved. You searched for explanations that never arrived. In those lonely moments, it was easy to believe that your heart had simply been abandoned. But what if that painful separation was not punishment? What if it was rescue? Archangel Michael reveals that not everyone who enters your life is assigned to remain there forever. Some arrive to teach a lesson, while others quietly reveal the strength you never knew you possessed. When their season ends, heaven gently closes the door, even when your heart still wants to hold it open. The same is true of opportunities that disappeared just as success seemed within reach. You prepared carefully. You worked faithfully. You imagined how different your future would become. Then everything collapsed in a way you never expected. At first, disappointment filled every thought. You questioned your abilities. You questioned your purpose. You even questioned whether God had truly heard your prayers. Yet there were details hidden beyond your vision. There were conversations you never heard, motives you never discovered, and consequences you never experienced because divine protection stepped in before they could reach you. Archangel Michael asks you to imagine walking through a dense forest at night. Your vision reaches only a few steps ahead, but someone standing high above the trees can see every winding path, every hidden danger, and every safe direction. Which perspective would you trust? Your understanding often sees only today's disappointment, while God sees tomorrow's victory, next year's restoration, and the eternal purpose woven through every chapter of your life. That is why His guidance sometimes leads you away from what feels good in the moment toward what is truly good in the end. There are blessings that cannot safely enter your life until certain dangers have first been removed. Sometimes pride must be humbled before influence is increased. Sometimes unhealthy attachments must be broken before healthy relationships can flourish. Sometimes hidden fears must be confronted before lasting peace can take root. None of these processes are pleasant while they are happening. They often feel confusing, unfair, or painfully slow. Yet each one clears away obstacles that would eventually stand between you and the future God has prepared. Consider how often impatience encourages people to force open doors that heaven intentionally keeps closed. A person grows tired of waiting and accepts a relationship built on compromise. Another abandons integrity to gain quick success. Someone else chooses comfort over calling because the journey seems too difficult. These decisions may appear rewarding for a season, but they often carry burdens that last much longer than the temporary satisfaction they provide. Divine timing protects you from victories that would eventually become your greatest regrets. Perhaps you have wondered why certain dreams continue to remain just beyond your reach. You have prayed faithfully, worked diligently, and remained hopeful, yet the answer still seems delayed. Do not mistake God's patience for God's absence. The master builder never rushes the foundation simply because the future homeowner is eager to move in. Every detail must be secure before the structure can safely stand. In the same way, heaven is arranging circumstances that reach far beyond what your eyes can presently observe. Hearts are being prepared. Opportunities are being aligned. Doors are being strengthened so that when they finally open, they will remain open according to God's perfect will. Archangel Michael reminds you that protection often leaves no visible evidence. You rarely see the accident that never happened, the betrayal that never reached you, or the mistake you were quietly guided away from making. You may never fully know how many dangers were removed before they ever entered your path. Yet one day, whether in this life or the next, you will understand that countless moments you called delays were actually acts of extraordinary mercy. So release the burden of believing that every closed door represented failure. Release the pain of assuming that every postponed answer meant rejection. Instead, choose to believe that your Heavenly Father has been guarding your future with perfect wisdom. Every step has been measured. Every pause has carried purpose. Every detour has been watched over by hands that never grow weary. The story is not moving away from your blessing. It is moving toward it with greater precision than you could ever imagine. And when the appointed moment arrives, you will recognize that the God who asked you to wait was the same God who was protecting every promise until the exact time it could be received in complete peace. Chosen one, there is a reason heaven did not allow your breakthrough to arrive the moment you first prayed for it. That reason was never a lack of love. It was never because your faith was too small or because your tears went unnoticed. Archangel Michael reminds you that God's delays are never random. They are filled with purpose, precision, and wisdom that reaches far beyond what any human mind can comprehend. The clock of heaven does not move according to anxiety, pressure, or impatience. It moves according to perfect timing, where every detail is prepared before the blessing is released. Many people believe they are waiting for a miracle, when in reality the miracle is also waiting for them. Not because they are being punished, but because God is shaping them into the person who can faithfully carry what is coming. Imagine placing a magnificent crown upon the head of someone who has never learned humility. That crown would become a burden instead of an honor. Imagine giving great influence to a heart that has not yet learned compassion. That influence could easily become pride, Heaven understands that preparation is one of the greatest expressions of love because God desires not only to bless you but also to preserve the blessing after it arrives. Archangel Michael reveals that every season has been building something inside you that comfort alone could never produce. Waiting has taught you endurance. Disappointment has taught you to lean on God instead of your own understanding. Uncertainty has taught you to trust even when you cannot see the destination. These lessons are not temporary exercises. They are becoming permanent strengths that will support the future God has already prepared. Think about the strongest buildings ever constructed. Before anyone admires their beauty, months or even years are spent strengthening what cannot be seen. Workers dig deep beneath the surface, laying foundations that will carry tremendous weight for generations to come. Those passing by may see nothing impressive during that stage. Some might even wonder if progress has stopped altogether. Yet the builders understand a truth that others do not. A weak foundation creates a dangerous future. In the same way, heaven has been strengthening your unseen foundation so that when greater responsibilities arrive, you will stand firm rather than collapse under pressure. Perhaps you have asked why your prayers seem to receive answers later than you expected. Consider that God is not preparing only one part of the story. He is preparing every part simultaneously. While He strengthens your faith, He is also arranging circumstances beyond your sight. Hearts are being softened. Doors are being positioned. Conversations are unfolding. Obstacles are being removed before they ever reach your path. There are people you have not yet met whose lives will become connected with yours at exactly the right moment. If your blessing had arrived earlier, those divine connections would have been missed. What appears to be a delay from your perspective is often perfect synchronization from heaven's perspective. Archangel Michael wants you to release another heavy burden today, the fear that time has been lost forever. The enemy enjoys convincing people that they are too late, that they have missed their opportunity, or that someone else has taken the place that belonged to them. But what God has prepared for you cannot be stolen by another person. It cannot be erased by a temporary setback. It cannot be canceled by the passing of months or even years. Divine purpose is not fragile. It remains secure because its author is eternal. There are moments when God intentionally slows your journey because speed would expose you to dangers you are not yet prepared to face. A traveler rushing through unfamiliar mountains may overlook the cliff hidden just beyond the next turn. A wise guide reduces the pace, not to frustrate the traveler, but to ensure the journey ends safely. In the same way, your Heavenly Father has often reduced the pace of your life, not because He desired to limit your future, but because He desired to protect it. You may also notice that your perspective has changed during this waiting season. The things that once seemed urgent no longer carry the same importance. You have learned to value peace over applause, character over recognition, and obedience over immediate success. These changes are evidence that God has been preparing your heart for blessings that require maturity rather than mere excitement. Temporary pleasure fades quickly, but wisdom gained through waiting remains for a lifetime. Archangel Michael encourages you to remember that the greatest breakthroughs in Scripture often arrived after long periods of preparation. The waiting was never wasted. It refined faith, revealed God's faithfulness, and ensured that when the promise finally appeared, there could be no doubt about its divine origin. The same pattern is unfolding in your own story. Every delay has been adding strength to your spirit, clarity to your purpose, and stability to your future. So do not allow discouragement to convince you that heaven has forgotten your address. The God who began this work has been guiding every detail with perfect wisdom. Even now, events beyond your understanding are moving into alignment. The answer you have longed for is not wandering aimlessly through uncertainty. It is advancing according to a timetable designed by the one who sees the end from the beginning. Trust the process that has shaped you. Trust the silence that has strengthened you. Trust the timing that has protected you. For when God's appointed moment finally arrives, you will discover that every season of waiting carried hidden purpose, every unanswered question carried unseen preparation, and every delay became part of a testimony that will inspire others to trust His perfect timing as well. Dear child of hope, something is changing even if your eyes cannot yet measure it. The silence that once felt heavy is no longer the silence of emptiness. It is becoming the silence that comes just before movement. Archangel Michael wants you to understand that heaven often shifts circumstances quietly before anyone on earth recognizes that anything has changed. A seed beneath the soil makes no sound as it breaks open, yet that hidden moment is the beginning of visible life. In the same way, your breakthrough does not begin when everyone sees it. It begins in places only God can see. You may still wake up to the same responsibilities. Your surroundings may appear unchanged. The challenges you have been praying about may still seem to stand before you. Yet do not confuse familiar surroundings with an unchanged future. Many of God's greatest works begin long before they become visible. The answer to your prayer may already be moving through conversations you know nothing about. Someone may be preparing to make a decision that will unexpectedly affect your path. A door you assumed will remain closed may already be unlocking because heaven has spoken to hearts beyond your reach. Archangel Michael reminds you that unseen victories always come before visible victories. Before a tree produces fruit, life has already begun flowing through its roots. Before dawn breaks across the horizon, the earth has already begun turning toward the light. Before the answer appears in your hands, God has already begun arranging the events that will bring it to pass. This is why faith remains so powerful. Faith believes that movement is happening even when the evidence has not yet reached human sight. Perhaps you have been praying for restoration. Maybe it concerns your family, your calling, your finances, or the peace that once filled your heart. You have wondered whether the damage has gone too far to be repaired. But remember this truth: the God who created the heavens does not become overwhelmed by broken circumstances. What appears impossible to human understanding is still completely within His authority. Archangel Michael stands as a reminder that heaven specializes in restoring what people believe hath been permanently lost. Time may have passed, but divine purpose has not expired. During this season, you may notice small changes that seem almost insignificant. A new opportunity may appear unexpectedly. An encouraging conversation may arrive at exactly the right moment. A burden that has weighed on your heart for months may suddenly begin to feel lighter. Do not overlook these moments because they seem small. They are often the first signs that heaven's larger plan is unfolding. Great rivers begin as small streams. Great testimonies often begin with quiet moments of encouragement that strengthen your faith before greater miracles arrive. The enemy wants you to ignore these signs because discouragement thrives when people focus only on what remains unfinished. He whispers that unless everything changes immediately, nothing is changing at all. But God works differently. He often reveals His faithfulness one step at a time so that your confidence grows alongside your blessing. Every small victory prepares your heart to receive greater victories without forgetting the one who provided them. Archangel Michael also reminds you that your prayers have affected more than your own life. When one person chooses faith instead of despair, others are strengthened by that example even if they never speak about it. Your perseverance has become a testimony that reaches farther than you realize. Someone has watched you continue believing despite disappointment. Someone has quietly drawn courage from your refusal to surrender. Heaven often uses hidden faithfulness to inspire people you may never even meet. As your season begins to shift, Guard your heart carefully. Do not allow bitterness over yesterday's delays to steal tomorrow's joy. Forgive where forgiveness is needed. Release old disappointments into God's hands. Lay down the weight of comparisons that have burdened your spirit. The future God is preparing requires a heart that is free to receive it. Archangel Michael encourages you to travel lightly because the blessings ahead are not meant to be carried alongside resentment, fear, or regret. There will also be moments when the enemy attempts one final wave of discouragement. Just before change becomes visible, doubt often speaks the loudest. It will suggest that you have waited too long. It will remind you of every previous disappointment. It will try to convince you that expecting good things only leads to greater pain. Recognize those thoughts for what they are. They are not messages from heaven. They are attempts to make you abandon hope just before the answer comes into view. So remain steadfast a little longer. Continue praying with expectation instead of exhaustion. Continue speaking words of faith instead of defeat. Continue believing that God is working even when your natural senses cannot yet confirm it. The battle has not remained frozen. It has been quietly shifting in your favor under the direction of the one who never loses a single battle. Archangel Michael leaves you with this assurance. Every unseen adjustment taking place today is preparing for a visible testimony tomorrow. The delay has accomplished its purpose. The preparation is reaching completion. The foundation has grown strong enough to support what is coming. Stay faithful, remain watchful, and keep your heart open, because the quiet movement of heaven is drawing closer to the moment when what hath been hidden will finally stand before you in unmistakable clarity. Faithful heart, there comes a moment in every divine story when years of quiet preparation suddenly begin to reveal their purpose. It does not always arrive with loud announcements or dramatic signs in the sky. Often it begins with one unexpected opportunity, one life-changing conversation, one answer that appears after countless prayers seem to disappear into silence. Archangel Michael speaks this truth over you today. The doors that have remained closed are not locked forever. They have simply been waiting for the exact moment when heaven declares that everything is ready. Many people imagine that blessings arrive little by little, one small piece at a time. Sometimes they do. But there are also seasons in which God works suddenly after a long period of waiting. Just as dawn seems to appear in a single moment after a long night, breakthroughs often seem to arrive all at once after months or years of preparation. The darkness does not gradually negotiate with the light. The light simply arrives, and everything changes. This is why you must never judge your future by your present circumstances. One moment in God's timing can accomplish what years of human effort could never produce. Archangel Michael reminds you that what hath been delayed has not been diminished. The promise over your life has not weakened because time has passed. If anything, it hath been strengthened through the process that prepared you to receive it. The wisdom you gained during your waiting season will help you protect what is coming. The humility you learn through disappointment will keep your heart grounded when favor begins to increase. The compassion born from your struggles will allow you to bless others who are still walking through seasons you have already survived. There may have been days when you wondered whether your purpose had quietly slipped away. Watching others move forward while you remained in the same place tested your faith in ways few people understood. You smiled when others celebrated their victories, even while carrying silent questions about your own future. Heaven saw every one of those moments. God noticed every act of faithfulness that no one applauded. Every time you chose gratitude instead of bitterness, every time you chose hope instead of surrender, another stone was added to the pathway leading toward your appointed season. Do not be surprised if opportunities begin to appear from unexpected directions. God often chooses methods that prevent anyone from claiming the glory for themselves. The answer may come through a conversation you never planned to have. A relationship may be restored when you believed reconciliation was impossible. A door may open in a place you never considered. The blessing may arrive differently than you imagined, yet it will carry the unmistakable peace that confirms God's hand has been guiding the journey all along. Archangel Michael also encourages you to prepare your heart for increase rather than merely wishing for it. Many people pray for open doors while secretly believing they will never appear. Faith, however, prepares before it sees. It organizes the heart for what God has promised. It replaces fear with expectation. It chooses confidence over doubt because it trusts the character of the one who made the promise. Begin thanking God not only for what He has already done, but also for what He is about to reveal. Gratitude opens your eyes to recognize blessings that anxiety would otherwise overlook. As these doors begin to open, remember the lessons learned during your season of waiting. Do not rush past them as though they no longer matter. The patience you developed, the dependence you discovered, and the deeper relationship you built with God are treasures far greater than any earthly success. Those qualities will sustain you long after the excitement of answered prayers settles into everyday life. They will remind you that the greatest gift was never merely the blessing itself. The greatest gift was becoming more like the person God created you to be while you waited. There will also be people who cannot understand your testimony because they only witnessed the moment the doors opened. They did not see the lonely nights of prayer. They did not see the disappointments that strengthened your faith. They did not see the tears that became seeds planted in hope. Let that never trouble your heart. Heaven remembers every unseen sacrifice. God values every hidden act of obedience. Archangel Michael reminds you that what is rewarded publicly is often cultivated privately. Now is the time to lift your eyes beyond the disappointments of yesterday. Refuse to remain emotionally trapped in seasons that God has already brought you through. The waiting has accomplished its assignment. The refining fire has completed its work. The foundation has been strengthened, and your heart has been prepared to receive what once would have overwhelmed you. Walk forward with quiet confidence. The same God who protected you through every delay is the God who now leads you toward fulfillment. Every closed door that served its purpose will remain behind you, while every door ordained by heaven will open at the appointed time. And when you finally step across that threshold, you will understand that not a single day of waiting was wasted. Every delay carried divine intention, every detour preserved your destiny, and every unanswered question was leading you toward a future more beautiful than anything you could have planned for yourself. Beloved one, if you have remained through every season of uncertainty, every unanswered prayer, and every painful delay, then hear this with all your heart. Your faith has brought you to a sacred moment. Archangel Michael says that there is a difference between simply waiting and being prepared. Many people wait because they have no other choice. But those who continue trusting God while they wait are quietly being transformed. You have not merely survived the delay. You have been shaped by it. Every difficult season has been refining your spirit until it could reflect a deeper trust that circumstances alone could never produce. There were times when you believed your faith had become weak because you were tired. You mistook exhaustion for failure. You thought that because you cried during prayer, your confidence in God had disappeared. Yet heaven never measured your faith by the absence of tears. God saw the fact that even after disappointment, you still whispered another prayer. Even after another closed door, you still searched for His presence. Even after another delay, you still chose not to walk away. That quiet persistence became one of the strongest declarations of faith your soul has ever made. Archangel Michael reminds you that endurance is precious in the eyes of heaven. Anyone can celebrate when prayers are answered immediately. Anyone can praise when every path is smooth. But those who continue believing when nothing seems to change demonstrate a faith that cannot be shaken by temporary circumstances. That kind of faith becomes the foundation upon which God builds lasting testimonies. It is not emotional excitement that carries people through life's greatest battles. It is steadfast trust that refuses to let go of God's promises even when visible evidence appears absent. Look back for a moment and remember the person you were before this season began. You probably expected God to change your surroundings first. Instead, He began changing your heart. You became slower to judge and quicker to extend grace. You learned that true peace does not depend on perfect circumstances. You discovered that hope can remain alive even in seasons of silence. Those changes may not have seemed dramatic while they were happening, but they reveal the quiet work of the Holy Spirit within you. The greatest miracle has never been limited to what God does around you. It also includes what He accomplishes within you. Now heaven invites you to lift your expectations again. Not because every challenge has instantly disappeared, but because the season itself is shifting. The delay that once taught patience is giving way to the season that reveals purpose. The lessons you have learned are about to become tools that bless others. People who are still trapped in discouragement will one day hear your testimony and discover renewed hope because you refused to abandon your faith when the journey became difficult. Archangel Michael also urges you not to allow fear to return just because change begins to appear. Sometimes people grow so accustomed to waiting that they become afraid to believe good things are finally approaching. They protect themselves from disappointment by expecting nothing at all. But that is not the posture heaven desires. God invites you to expect His goodness with humility rather than suspicion. The same God who sustained you through the wilderness is fully able to lead you into the promise prepared for you. Remember that breakthroughs are rarely given simply for personal comfort. They are entrusted to people who will use them to glorify God and strengthen others. Your restored peace will encourage another weary heart. Your answered prayer will remind someone else not to quit believing. Your journey through delay will become proof that divine timing never fails, even when human understanding falls short. This is why every painful chapter has carried eternal value. Nothing has been wasted. Every tear has watered seeds that will eventually produce fruit beyond anything you can presently imagine. So stand firmly where you are today. Refuse to surrender to old fears. Refuse to measure your future by yesterday's disappointments. Lift your eyes with confidence, because the God who carried you this far has no intention of abandoning you now. Archangel Michael declares that your faith has reached a place of greater strength, greater wisdom, and greater readiness than you may realize. Continue walking with quiet confidence. Continue trusting without fear. Continue believing that heaven's perfect timing is unfolding even now, one faithful step at a time. Type "My time is in God's hands" in the comments if you receive this message with faith. Blessing code 8821 is now released as a reminder that those who trust God's timing will never be put to shame. As this message comes to rest in your spirit, let your faith become a light for someone who is still searching for hope. Every super thanks and every PayPal gift helps carry these messages to hearts that may be praying for a sign from God today. The PayPal donation link is available in every video description, and each video also includes a QR code for those who feel led to give. If your heart is saying, "I want to sow into the work God is doing through these messages," act on that prompting with joyful obedience. Scripture reminds us that those who sow in faith will reap according to God's abundant provision, and today that promise is being spoken personally over you. I pray that every seed you release is met with overflowing peace, unexpected favor, and doors that only God can open. Do not wait for another moment. Sow your seed today and become part of the harvest heaven is preparing across countless lives. Beloved child, there are battles you remember clearly, and then there are battles you never even knew were taking place. The ones you remember are the moments when you cried, questioned, and wondered if you could continue. The ones you never saw were the silent victories God was accomplishing beyond the reach of your understanding. Archangel Michael speaks this assurance over your life today. The greatest obstacles standing between you and your purpose have not been ignored. They have been confronted one by one according to heaven's perfect wisdom. What once appeared immovable is already beginning to give way. For a long time, it may have seemed as though every step forward was followed by 2 steps backward. Each time hope began to rise, another disappointment appeared. You questioned whether the pattern would ever end. Yet not every delay was created to stop you. Some delays were designed to expose what needed to be removed before your journey could safely continue. God does not simply lead His children toward blessing. He also clears away the hidden dangers that would try to corrupt that blessing once it arrives. Archangel Michael reminds you that obstacles are not always external. Some of the greatest barriers exist within the heart. Fear whispers that failure will repeat itself. Doubt insists that yesterday's disappointments define tomorrow's possibilities. Regret keeps replaying old mistakes until they feel larger than God's mercy. These invisible burdens can become heavier than any outward circumstance. Yet heaven has been patiently breaking their influence over your life. Every lesson learned through waiting has weakened fear. Every answered prayer, no matter how small, has challenged doubt. Every act of God's faithfulness has reminded you that His grace is greater than your past. There may also be people whose words discouraged your spirit. Some questioned your calling. Others underestimated the work God was doing within you simply because they could not yet see visible results. Your opinions may have lingered in your mind longer than they should have. But remember this truth: human judgment cannot cancel divine purpose. The God who called you was never dependent upon the approval of people. Archangel Michael encourages you to release the need to prove yourself. Your responsibility is not to convince everyone else that God is working. Your responsibility is to remain faithful while He completes what He has begun. As the obstacles continue to fall away, you may notice an unusual sense of peace replacing the anxiety that once dominated your thoughts. Circumstances may not change overnight, but your perspective begins to change first. What once filled you with panic now drives you to prayer. What once caused discouragement now becomes another opportunity to trust. This transformation is one of heaven's greatest victories because lasting peace is never built upon temporary circumstances. It is built upon confidence in God's unchanging character. Archangel Michael also reminds you that God rarely removes every obstacle at once. He often clears the path one step at a time so that your dependence remains fixed upon Him instead of your own strength. If every answer arrived immediately, it would be easy to forget the one who provided it. But when each victory unfolds according to divine timing, gratitude grows alongside the blessing. You begin to recognize that every open door carries the fingerprints of God's faithfulness. Perhaps there are still situations in your life that seem impossible to overcome. Maybe there is a relationship that feels beyond repair, a financial burden that appears overwhelming, or a dream that has remained untouched by visible progress. Do not allow appearances to become your final authority. Throughout history, God has repeatedly demonstrated that what seems impossible to human understanding remains completely possible in His hands. The obstacle may still stand before your eyes today, but that does not mean it will remain there forever. Heaven has never been limited by what seems permanent to mankind. As you continue walking forward, guard your heart against returning to old habits of fear. When new opportunities begin to appear, resist the temptation to expect failure simply because failure visited you in the past. The delay has already taught you valuable lessons. There is no need to carry yesterday's burdens into tomorrow's blessings. Archangel Michael encourages you to step into each new season with wisdom, but not with suspicion. Trust the God who preserved you through every difficult chapter to also sustain you through every joyful one. There is another truth your spirit must embrace. Sometimes the obstacle was never placed in your path to destroy you. It was allowed to reveal the strength God had already placed within you. Had the challenge never appeared, you would never have discovered the depth of your faith, the endurance of your spirit, or the quiet courage that now defines your journey. Looking back, you will realize that what once looked like a barrier became a bridge leading you closer to the person God created you to become. So stand with renewed confidence today. Refuse to let fear write the final chapter of your story. Refuse to believe that the delays of yesterday determine the victories of tomorrow. Archangel Michael declares that the path ahead is becoming clear with every faithful step you take. The obstacles that once appeared impossible are yielding to God's perfect authority. The chains of discouragement are losing their hold. The weight of uncertainty is growing lighter. Continue walking in faith, because the God who has guided you through every hidden battle is leading you toward a future where His promises will be seen with unmistakable clarity, and the testimony born from your waiting will encourage countless others to trust His perfect timing as well. Precious child, there comes a moment when everything that once seemed disconnected begins to fit together with breathtaking clarity. The prayers you thought were unanswered, the detours you struggled to understand, the waiting that stretched far longer than you believed possible, all of it starts revealing a pattern that only God could have designed. Archangel Michael says you are approaching that kind of season. What hath been hidden is preparing to unfold, not in confusion, but with purpose so clear that your heart will recognize the fingerprints of heaven upon every step. You have spent so much time asking, "Why did this happen?" Soon you may begin asking a different question. How could God have arranged all of this so perfectly? There is a remarkable difference between those two questions. The first is born from pain searching for meaning. The second is born from faith witnessing God's wisdom. Many of the answers you longed to receive were never meant to arrive as words alone. They were meant to become living experiences that would forever change the way you trust your Heavenly Father. Archangel Michael reminds you that God's promises often unfold gradually, not because His power is limited, but because His wisdom is perfect. Imagine reading only one page of a beautiful book and deciding the entire story makes no sense. You would miss the chapters where every mystery is explained, every conflict is resolved, and every promise is fulfilled. In the same way, your life cannot be understood by looking only at the chapter of waiting. The author is still writing, and every page is moving toward a conclusion filled with His goodness. Perhaps you have wondered whether the years spent waiting could ever be restored. You may look back and see opportunities that slipped away or seasons that seemed unproductive. Yet heaven measures time differently than human beings do. God is able to accomplish in one season what seems impossible by human calculation. He has a way of bringing restoration that reaches beyond what was lost. Sometimes He does not simply return what was taken. He replaces it with something greater, something wiser, and something more perfectly aligned with His eternal purpose. This is why divine timing is always worth trusting, even when it stretches your patience beyond what you believed possible. Archangel Michael also encourages you to recognize the quiet signs of unfolding promise already surrounding you. You may find yourself experiencing an unusual sense of peace even before every answer arrives. New ideas may begin filling your heart with fresh hope. Doors that remained firmly shut for years may suddenly begin opening without the struggle you once expected. Relationships may begin healing through conversations you never imagined would happen. These are not random events. They are often the first visible threads of God's larger tapestry coming together. As the promise unfolds, Guard yourself against the temptation to take credit for what only God could accomplish. Your faithfulness mattered, but it was God's grace that sustained you. Your obedience mattered, but it was God's wisdom that directed your path. Your perseverance mattered, but it was God's strength that carried you when your own strength was gone. Humility will allow you to enjoy every blessing without forgetting the source from which it came. There will also be moments when others ask how everything changed so unexpectedly. They will see the favor but may not understand the process that preceded it. They will notice the harvest without realizing how many tears watered the soil. They will celebrate the open doors without knowing how many closed doors prepared your heart to walk through them wisely. Let your testimony always point back to God's faithfulness rather than your own achievements. In doing so, your story will become more than a personal victory. It will become an invitation for others to place their trust in the Lord. Archangel Michael reminds you that every fulfilled promise carries new responsibility. Blessings are never given merely to satisfy personal desires. They are entrusted so that God's goodness may flow through your life into the lives of others. The comfort you receive prepares you to comfort someone else. The wisdom you gain equips you to guide another traveler through their own season of waiting. The peace you now experience becomes evidence that God's timing truly is perfect, even when it once seemed painfully slow. Do not become impatient if every detail has not yet appeared. A sunrise does not reveal the entire landscape in a single second. Light spreads steadily until everything hidden becomes visible. Your journey is unfolding in much the same way. Every day brings another glimpse of God's plan. Every faithful step reveals another portion of His purpose. Every answered prayer strengthens your confidence for the promises still ahead. So continue walking with expectation instead of anxiety. Lift your eyes above the memories of delay and fix them upon the faithfulness of God. Archangel Michael declares that the promise is no longer a distant possibility. It is becoming an unfolding reality shaped by divine wisdom from beginning to end. The waiting has prepared you. The lessons have strengthened you. The protection has preserved you. Now the beauty of God's timing is beginning to reveal itself, and when the full picture finally comes into view, you will understand that every delay, every detour, and every season of silence was carefully woven together into a testimony that reflects the perfect love and flawless timing of heaven. My beloved friend, if you have walked this far, then your spirit has already traveled through a remarkable journey. You have seen how every delay carried hidden purpose, how every closed door concealed divine protection, and how every season of waiting quietly prepared you for something greater than you could have imagined. Now Archangel Michael speaks with a voice of calm assurance. You are standing closer to fulfillment than you realize. The distance between preparation and manifestation is becoming smaller with every faithful step you take. There is a powerful truth that many people discover only after looking back over their lives. They realize that the moments they once wished away became the very moments that shaped their greatest victories. Had the waiting been shorter, their character would have remained unprepared. Had the answer come sooner, they might not have recognized its value. Had every obstacle been removed immediately, they would never have learned to trust the one who walked beside them through every challenge. Today, your heart is being invited to embrace that same understanding before the entire picture is visible. Archangel Michael reminds you that standing on the edge of fulfillment often feels surprisingly ordinary. Many expect a dramatic announcement from heaven or unmistakable signs in every direction. Yet God's greatest movements frequently begin in quiet ways. Elijah did not encounter the Lord in the wind, the earthquake, or the fire, but in the gentle whisper. In the same way, do not overlook the quiet peace settling over your heart. Do not dismiss the growing confidence replacing your fear. These subtle changes often signal that heaven is preparing you to step into a new chapter, with stability rather than excitement alone. You may still face moments when old doubts attempt to return. Memories of unanswered prayers may rise unexpectedly. Past disappointments may whisper that nothing will ever truly change. But those voices no longer possess the authority they once held over your life. You have traveled too far to surrender to the fears that once controlled your thinking. Every season behind you has proven that God remained faithful even when His plans were hidden. That history of faithfulness becomes the strongest foundation for trusting Him with a future. Archangel Michael encourages you to remember that fulfillment is not measured solely by receiving what you prayed for. True fulfillment is found in becoming the person God intended you to be. If you received every earthly blessing but lost your peace, your humility, or your relationship with God along the way, the victory would be incomplete. But heaven has been working on both the promise and the person who would receive it. That is why your waiting season has carried such lasting value. God has not simply been preparing your future. He has been preparing your heart to enjoy that future with gratitude, wisdom, and unwavering faith. As you stand at this important moment, choose expectation over hesitation. There is no need to carry the heavy burden of yesterday into tomorrow. Lay down the fear that another disappointment is waiting around the corner. Release the habit of assuming every delay means rejection. Those thoughts belong to an earlier season, one that has already fulfilled its purpose. The road ahead calls for a different posture. It calls for quiet confidence, steady hope, and joyful anticipation rooted not in circumstances but in the unchanging character of God. There may soon be moments when events begin unfolding more quickly than you expected. Doors that remain firmly shut may suddenly open. Opportunity you believed had disappeared forever may return in forms even greater than before. Relationships may be restored through unexpected conversations. Long-awaited answers may arrive one after another until you find yourself amazed by the precision of God's timing. When those moments come, resist the temptation to think they happened by chance. Remember every prayer, every tear, every lesson, and every act of divine protection that brought you to that place. Nothing will have happened accidentally. Every detail will testify that God was faithfully guiding your path long before you understood where it was leading. Archangel Michael also reminds you that your testimony does not end when your breakthrough arrives. In many ways, it is only beginning. There are people who will one day need to hear about the season when you almost gave up but chose to trust instead. There are weary hearts waiting for someone who can honestly say, "I understand you're waiting because I have walked through it myself." Your story will become a source of hope because it was refined through genuine trials rather than easy victories. God wastes nothing, and that includes every difficult chapter you have lived through. So lift your eyes one more time and fix them upon the faithfulness of your Heavenly Father. The delay that once confused you has become evidence of His wisdom. The silence that once troubled you has become proof of His careful preparation. The waiting that once tested you has become the foundation of an unshakable faith. Archangel Michael declares that you are no longer looking at your future through the lens of frustration, but through the eyes of trust. Stand firm in that confidence. Continue walking with courage. Continue believing with all your heart. The God who carried you through every hidden season has brought you to the threshold of fulfillment, and when you finally step into everything He has prepared, you will declare with complete certainty that His timing was never late, never early, but absolutely perfect from beginning to end. Beloved child, as these final words settle into your heart, allow yourself to breathe with peace instead of pressure. The message that began with urgency now ends with assurance. 45 minutes left. Archangel Michael says the delay you've been frustrated by was actually divine timing, was never meant to fill you with fear. It was meant to awaken you to a truth that heaven has been whispering over your life all along. You have never been forgotten. never been abandoned, and never been outside the loving care of God. Look back over everything you have heard. Every delay carried purpose. Every closed door carrying protection. Every unanswered prayer carried preparation. Even the tears you believed were falling unnoticed became precious before the Lord. Nothing has been wasted. Not one moment of your waiting has escaped God's attention. The path that once seemed confusing has always been held securely in His hands. Archangel Michael reminds you that the greatest victories are often recognized only after the journey is complete. While you were living through the waiting, you saw only fragments. You saw today's disappointment without tomorrow's restoration. You saw today's silence without tomorrow's testimony. But God has always seen the complete picture. He has been writing a story that reaches far beyond your present understanding, weaving together moments that once appeared disconnected into a masterpiece of grace, mercy, and perfect timing. If your heart still carries questions that have not yet been answered, do not let those questions steal the peace that God is offering today. Faith does not require every mystery to be solved before it can rest. Faith rests because it knows the character of the one who holds the answers. Your Heavenly Father has proven His faithfulness again and again. He sustained you when you felt weak. He protected you when you were unaware of danger. He guided you when the road ahead seemed hidden. The same God who has carried you this far will remain faithful until every promise He has spoken over your life is fulfilled. There may still be days when waiting feels difficult. There may still be moments when you wonder how much longer the journey will continue. When those moments come, remember everything heaven has revealed to you today. Do not return to the mindset that believed delay meant denial. Instead, remember that divine timing is never rushed and never delayed. It arrives with perfect wisdom, bringing not only the blessing itself, but also the maturity, peace, and strength needed to receive it with gratitude. Archangel Michael encourages you to move forward without fear. Release the burden of trying to control every outcome. Lay your plans before God, but trust Him with the timing. Continue praying with confidence. Continue serving with humility. Continue loving with sincerity. Continue believing even when your eyes cannot yet see what your spirit already knows. Every faithful step you take becomes another declaration that your hope is anchored in God rather than circumstances. And when your breakthrough arrives, and it will arrive according to God's perfect will, do not forget the lessons learned in the waiting. Let your testimony become a source of comfort for those who are still struggling through their own seasons of delay. Remind them that God never abandons His children. Tell them that silence does not mean absence. Share with them that what seemed like the longest chapter eventually became the strongest proof of God's perfect timing. In doing so, your journey will continue blessing lives long after your own prayers have been answered. As you leave this message, carry peace instead of anxiety. Carry expectation instead of discouragement. Carry gratitude instead of regret. The God who authored your story is also completing it with flawless wisdom. Archangel Michael stands as a reminder that heaven's protection has surrounded you from the beginning. Heaven's purpose has guided every delay, and heaven's love will never leave your side. Walk into the days ahead with quiet confidence, knowing that your future is not being shaped by chance, but by the faithful hands of the one who has always known exactly when every promise should be fulfilled. Type "I trust God's perfect timing" in the comments if you receive this message with all your heart. Blessing code 5517 is now released as a reminder that God's promises always arrive at the appointed time for those who remain faithful. As this message comes to its close, let your response become part of the mission God is continuing through these words. Every soul reached with hope is another light shining into someone's darkest hour, and your generosity helps keep that light burning. The Lord speaks personally through His word, saying that those who sow beside living waters will see a harvest in its appointed season, and today you have the opportunity to become part of that promise. If your heart is saying, "I want to help this message reach another life," obey that gentle prompting with faith. You can send a super thanks or give directly through the PayPal donation link found in every video description and through the QR code included with each video. I declare God's abundant favor, protection, and provision over every person who gives with a willing heart, believing that their seed will carry hope into countless lives. Do not delay the calling placed upon your spirit. Sow your gift today and become a faithful partner in spreading God's word to the hearts that are still waiting for this message.